You ever get a text so cold it feels like it slapped the soul out of you? Mine came at 7:42 p.m., right after I clocked out of my last shift at the campus cafe. I was excited, hopeful, hungry. But when I got to the house I grew up in, my key didn't work. I thought maybe I was tired. I tried again, jiggled it. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Locks changed. You don't have a home anymore. You made your choice. Mom. No fight. No warning. Just like that I was exiled. And I know what you're probably thinking. What choice? What did I do? Well, let me tell you. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. My name is Alyssa Monroe, and my life didn't fall apart all at once. It crumbled in layers, soft enough to overlook, sharp enough to leave scars. I'm 23. I just graduated from Franklin State University with a degree in graphic design, a battered Honda Civic, and about $63 in my checking account, before it got overdrafted by a subscription I forgot to cancel. For years I was the good kid, the helper, the apologizer, the peacemaker, the one who never asked for much because I was too busy trying not to rock the boat. And still I ended up here, parked outside the house I used to call home, blinking at that text, trying not to cry. I didn't know what was worse in that moment. The silence behind the door I used to walk through every day. Or the realization that my own mother sent that message like she was deleting spam. I didn't even knock. Something told me not to. Instead, I got back in my car, turned off the engine, and sat there as night fell around me. The porch light clicked on. I saw movement in the window, just a flicker, but no one came out. Not even my younger brother, Jace, who was probably inside gaming with the AC blasting, not thinking twice about where I'd go. I'd been the one helping cover bills the last 2 years while juggling 3 jobs and school. Jace. He'd flunked out of community college, quit 2 warehouse jobs, and got bailed out for a DUI last Christmas. Mom blamed me for stressing him out. You'd think after everything, she'd have a sliver of loyalty to the daughter who stayed, who gave up an out-of-state internship to be closer and help with the house. But no. Apparently, asking her why money kept disappearing from my bank account was the final straw. That was the choice I made. Let me rewind. Few weeks earlier I noticed something off. My bank account didn't add up. I kept getting these Venmo alerts. Small at first. $50 here, $100 there. When I confronted my mom, she got defensive. It's not stealing. I needed it. And I've always managed your money better than you ever could. You know you're not good with finances. Her tone was sharp. But it was the gaslight cherry on top that broke me. Don't start turning on me like some selfish brat. I'd worked hard for every dollar in that account. Not only had she guilted me into co-signing the savings account when I was 18, just in case anything happens, she also convinced me that letting her have access was normal. I bought into that for years. Until I realized she wasn't just borrowing. She was draining. And when I told her I wanted to separate my accounts and change the passwords, she snapped. That was the last real conversation we had before the lockout. Back in my car, shivering in my barista apron, I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I texted Professor Rivera, my senior advisor and design mentor. Hey, sorry to text so late. Do you know of any temporary housing or leads? My situation just changed. I don't really have anywhere to go tonight. She responded within 10 minutes. I know someone with a guest room. Can call them now. Are you safe? That yes cracked something in me. Not the relief I wasn't there yet, but the sheer, crushing weight of someone actually believing me without asking what I did wrong. I stayed the night at her colleague's home, Mrs. Leland, an older artist with kind eyes and an entire wall of unfinished canvases. She didn't ask many questions. Just showed me the guest room and told me there were towels in the hall closet if I wanted a shower. I cried in that shower like my bones were breaking. Because it wasn't just about being locked out. It was about realizing I had never actually been safe in that house. Just tolerated. Just useful. Everything made sense in hindsight. The way my mother treated love like a contract. Do this and I'll do that. Obey and I'll let you breathe. She only showed warmth when I was broken enough to be quiet. Jace, on the other hand, could do no wrong. He once pawned my tablet for weed money and I got scolded for leaving it out. He smashed a hole in the drywall once during an argument with his girlfriend, and I patched it while Mom told the landlord I was clumsy. She had a talent for rewriting history. The next morning I didn't go back to school or work. Instead, I opened my laptop, dug up the paper trail. Screenshots of withdrawals, her text, old messages about money, even a voicemail where she told me, "Your account is mine until you're married or dead." I made a folder called Evidence. Then I made another one called Plan B. I applied for 3 remote design gigs that day. Dated my resume. Edited my portfolio. Ate a bowl of oatmeal I didn't have to apologize for. And then, something unexpected happened. I opened TikTok and started talking. Oh, story time. Ever get kicked out by your mom via text? Yeah, me neither. Until last night. I didn't name her. I didn't even cry. I just spoke plainly. And people listened. Thousands of views. Then tens of thousands. Comments from strangers. Some shocked, some sharing their own horror stories. That video wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was survival. By the end of the week, I had an offer from a Chicago-based startup that needed a junior brand designer. Remote, flexible, paying better than I expected. Mrs. Leland told me I could stay 1 more week. Professor Rivera called and said she was proud of me. I texted my mom once. "I'll be removing your name from everything by the end of this month. Legal advice pending." No reply. Not even a dot bubble. I think the thing that stung the most wasn't the betrayal. It was how easy it was for her to cut me off. No fight. No guilt. Just a text and a locked door. Like I'd been waiting for this day all my life without realizing it. But here's the twist she didn't see coming. She didn't kick me out. She set me free. And I was about to show her, and the world, what I could build without her control. You learn a lot about people when you lose everything. Within a week of being locked out, I found out exactly who was clapping for me when things were good, and who had just been watching, waiting for me to fall. Turns out that list included family. Especially family. I didn't go back for anything. Not clothes, not my sketchbooks, not the shoes I left by the front door. I figured if my mother could lock me out like a dog she'd grown tired of feeding, she didn't deserve the courtesy of a knock. But I did make a call to my bank. And that was where everything really began to unravel. The woman on the phone had a soft, almost apologetic tone when she confirmed what I already suspected. My mother had withdrawn over $3,800 from my savings account in the last 4 months. Slowly, strategically. Always just under the notification threshold I had set up for large transfers. The account legally was still joint. Because at 18 I didn't know better. Because my mother had framed it as a just-in-case backup. Just in case what? In case she decided to rob me blind. I hung up the call with a knot in my throat. Not because of the money, I mean yes that too, but because I could practically hear her voice in my head, spinning it all into something noble. "I kept your money safe. You don't understand how the world works. You needed me." She always said things like that. Wrapped control in concern. It was how she got me to stay after high school. How she got me to pay for groceries even when I was eating once a day just to make rent. She'd always guilt me into compliance. Always make her demands sound like sacrifices. And I believed her. For years. Not anymore. That night I started writing down everything. Not just the bank stuff but the emotional patterns too. I wrote about the Christmas Jace got a PlayStation and I got socks, because I wasn't showing enough gratitude lately. I wrote about the time I sprained my ankle and still got yelled at for not mopping the kitchen. I wrote about how she told our relatives I was troubled when I tried therapy sophomore year. She didn't even ask why I went. She just rolled her eyes and muttered something about how those people love to blame their mothers. I didn't know what I was going to do with all of it, but writing it down made it real. Made me feel less crazy. And for the first time in years, it gave me the one thing I thought I'd lost for good. My voice. I started posting more. Not just TikToks but YouTube shorts. Full videos. I made a series called Disowned Daughter Diaries. First I was scared. Scared of my mom seeing it. Of people thinking I was dramatic. But after the second video hit 100,000 views, and I got hundreds of DMs from people, some crying, some angry, all of them thanking me, I realized something. This wasn't just about me anymore. There were so many of us. Kids who were parentified. Who were raised to believe obedience was love. Who had their savings drained by parents who told them they were too immature to handle money. People whose childhood bedrooms had been turned into storage closets while they were still using them. We were everywhere. And we were pissed. The more I shared, the more my story spiraled out beyond me. One of my videos got stitched by a legal aid worker who said, "If your parent took your money without your consent, even from a joint account, you might have grounds for a civil case." I emailed her that night. I also got a message from someone I didn't expect. My cousin Brittany. We weren't close. Grew up on opposite coasts, only saw each other at funerals and that one miserable Thanksgiving in 2012. But her message was short and powerful. She did the same thing to my mom. Took her credit, drained her accounts, then told everyone she was unstable. I believe you. That message broke me. Because it meant I wasn't the first. My mom had a pattern. She didn't become controlling because I was flawed. She was controlling because that's who she was, and always had been. The betrayal stopped being personal and started feeling like part of something bigger. I wasn't just a daughter she turned on. I was a threat she needed to silence. But now I had an audience. And that was something she couldn't lock me out of. The more I posted, the more people came forward. Some anonymous, some with receipts. Someone who used to work with her at the bank DM'd me to say she bragged about teaching her kids real consequences whenever they questioned her. A girl I vaguely remembered from middle school wrote, "She called my mom trash because she let me dye my hair purple." I never forgot that. The picture came into focus fast. My mom wasn't the hard-working single woman she liked to present to the world. She was a bully with a good vocabulary. And I wasn't her broken little girl anymore. One night, about 2 weeks after I got locked out, I checked my email and froze. It was from Jace. "Why are you airing our family's business online? Do you want to make mom sick? She's been crying every day. Grow up and move on. You always exaggerate anyway." Asterisk. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it was the most effort he'd put into talking to me in months. Maybe years. And even now, his only concern was how I was embarrassing them. Not what they did. Not how they stole from me. Not the fact that I was living out of a suitcase and had to start a whole new life from nothing. Just that I was speaking too loud. I didn't reply. But I did post a video the next morning. No makeup. No background music. Just me, staring into the lens like it was the last person on earth who would hear me. It's always fascinating how the people who hurt you the most get angry when you tell the truth out loud. I'm not sharing for revenge. I'm sharing so I don't drown in silence. If the truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should sit with that. That one hit 1 million views in 3 days. Podcast reached out. Then a small online magazine. Then, out of nowhere, someone from a local news segment emailed me to ask if I'd be willing to do an interview about young people reclaiming their financial power after familial betrayal. Felt surreal. 1 minute I was crying in a stranger's guest room. The next I was on Zoom with a journalist who called me a voice for a generation. But despite all that, the drama back home didn't stop. Apparently, people started recognizing my mom at church. The grocery store. A neighbor told her, "I saw your daughter on YouTube. What happened?" She lost it. I know because another cousin sent me a Facebook status she posted, written in that unhinged, vague book style people over 40 think is subtle. It's always the ones you sacrifice the most for who twist the knife in your back. I won't be silenced. God knows the real story. I laughed. Loud. Because suddenly it wasn't just me spinning anymore. She was spiraling. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. Felt free. By the end of the month, I'd moved into a tiny studio in Chicago. One room, creaky floors, smells like curry from the neighbor's apartment at all hours. But it was mine. I hung my art on the wall. Bought a cheap second-hand desk. Got a rug that didn't match anything but made me feel grounded. My new boss at the startup told me, "You've got a hell of a voice. Use it." So I did. Kept posting. Not just stories anymore, but resources. How to remove a parent from your accounts. How to document financial abuse. How to build boundaries from rubble. And the more I shared, the less afraid I felt. I didn't care if Jace was watching. I didn't care if my mom cried. They weren't my home anymore. It was. And for once, that was more than enough. I didn't expect her to show up at my new place. That part still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. The knock on the door, soft but steady, like she had every right to be there. It was raining. Not pouring. Just that cold, miserable kind of rain that soaks through your jacket and leaves you smelling like the inside of a train station. I had my headphones in, editing thumbnails for the startup's new campaign, when I saw the shadow move across my window. No one visited me unannounced. I made sure of that. Barely anyone even knew my new address except Professor Rivera, Mrs. Leland, and a few trusted friends. But there she was. Standing there like she hadn't ripped my life to pieces with one text. I opened the door without really meaning to. Reflex. Years of instinct. And there she was, my mother. Soaked trench coat. Makeup smudged. Purse clutched like it held her last ounce of control. "Can we talk?" she said, already stepping forward. I blocked the door with my body. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out calm. "To come." That scared me more than if I'd screamed. Her eyes flicked past me, taking in the small apartment. The barely decorated walls. My unmade bed in the corner. I hated that I felt exposed. "I saw your videos," she said. Her voice trembled. Not from tears, but from rage she was trying to bury under a pathetic veneer of concern. "You're humiliating this family. Do you understand what you've done? You changed the locks," I said. "You left me with nothing. I had to." She dropped her eyes. "You were turning everyone against me. Saying things online. Half of them aren't even true. They're all true. You're dramatizing it. You always were sensitive, Alyssa. You take everything so personally." I laughed. That sharp, bitter kind of laugh that tastes like acid. "You stole from me. You emptied my savings. You told people I was unstable. And now you're here to, what? Play the victim. Redeem yourself for Facebook." Her expression hardened. "Jace is furious. Your aunt is disgusted. Everyone's saying I raised a monster who would air her dirty laundry to strangers for likes." "Good," I said. "They should know." "You think this makes you brave," she hissed. "It makes you petty. Vindictive. Ungrateful. I worked my fingers to the bone for you. Fed you, Alyssa. I paid your bills when you were a child. And this is how you repay me." I stepped out, forcing her to back up into the hallway. "I'm not a child anymore. And I'm not your scapegoat." She blinked. I think that was the first time she realized she wasn't going to win this. "You don't get to manipulate me into silence," I continued. "You don't get to take credit for surviving me when I'm the one who had to survive you." Her mouth fell open. No words came. "And you know what?" I said, voice shaking. "I do hope people see these videos. I hope every single person who ever believed your lies sees them and starts to wonder what else you've covered up." I turned to go back inside, but she grabbed my arm. "Don't you dare shut me out," she said in a low voice. "I'm still your mother." I stared at her hand on my arm. "Let go. Alyssa." I said let go. Her grip loosened. "Please," she whispered, and for the first time it wasn't a demand. It was a plea. Weak. Deflated. It almost worked. Almost. But then I remembered every time she'd used that same tone to rope me back in. The way she'd say please when she wanted access to my money. Please when she needed me to pick up Jace from the police station. Please when she wanted me to stay quiet about how she told her friends I was a burden. I stepped back, shut the door in her face, and I locked it. She stayed out there for a few minutes. I could hear her breathing through the wood. Then her footsteps faded down the hallway. I slid to the floor and stared at nothing for a while. My heart was pounding like I'd just outrun something hungry. And in a way I had. That night I posted a new video. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. I had to shut the door on someone today. Someone who used to have power over me. And I felt bad because I was trained to feel bad. But guilt isn't proof of wrongdoing. Sometimes it's just evidence of how deep the manipulation ran. The comments flooded in. People cheering. People crying. People sending me screenshots of their own mom's texts, almost identical in tone. It was like we were all reading from the same rotten script. And then something strange happened. A reporter from a major outlet messaged me. Not a tabloid. Real one. They wanted to do a feature on adult children estranged from their parents, particularly cases involving financial abuse. The journalist said my videos had reached their desk because this story isn't rare, it's just rarely told. We set up an interview. I talked for 2 hours, shaking and raw, but also certain in a way I'd never been before. I gave them everything. Screenshots, emails, even the bank statements. They fact-checked everything. Took their time. Promised to do it right. When the article dropped, it exploded. Not just online. Freeware. They titled it, "The Silent Theft, When Parents Cross the Line," and mine was the headline case. My face wasn't on the cover, but my words were. They quoted me directly. My mom didn't just steal money, she stole my sense of safety. I turned off my phone for a day. It was too much. Even the support felt overwhelming. But when I turned it back on, I had a message from someone I never thought I'd hear from. My dad. He'd left when I was 8. Barely a whisper of a man. More shadow than presence. My mom always said he abandoned us. That he was selfish. That he didn't want the responsibility. That I shouldn't waste my energy reaching out to someone who'd already chosen to leave. But now here he was. In my DMs. Alyssa. I saw the article. I don't know if I have the right to say anything, but I believe you. I left because I couldn't fight her anymore. She did to me what she did to you. I should have protected you. Sorry. I read that message 17 times before I could breathe properly. I didn't reply. Not right away. But for the first time, I questioned the version of him I'd been fed my whole life. What if she'd lied about that too? What if he didn't leave us? What if he left her? Everything I knew about my childhood was shifting. Like someone had pulled back the curtain on a play I'd spent decades acting in without knowing it was all a performance. I started therapy again. Real therapy. Not the half-hearted sessions I used to squeeze in between shifts and school. This time I showed up with a whole mess. And I didn't apologize for it. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Survivors of family betrayal often feel like traitors for telling the truth. And that was it. That was the feeling. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. But the truth has a way of burning through everything whether you want it to or not. A few weeks later my cousin Brittany messaged me again. She's losing her mind. The article. The videos. The exposure. She's calling everyone trying to do damage control. Says she's thinking about suing you for defamation. I stared at that message and just smiled. Because she couldn't. Everything I'd said was true. Documented. Backed up. There was no case. Only embarrassment. And it was hers to carry now. I wasn't carrying anything for her anymore. She tried to destroy me by cutting me off. Instead, she created something she couldn't control. A version of me that had nothing left to lose and everything to say. And I was just getting started. I used to think closure was a conversation. Final word. A mutual understanding where both sides nodded, maybe even hugged and moved on like adults. That's what movies teach us. Endings come with music and peace. But that's not how real life works. Real closure doesn't come gift-wrapped. Sometimes it doesn't come with words at all. Sometimes it shows up in the form of silence you choose to maintain, Even when the door is wide open and the people who broke you are begging for one last monologue. That's where I was. 1 month after the article. 2 months after the locks changed. And exactly 3 months since the last time I called my mom and still hoped she'd be someone different. The world had changed since then. Or maybe just mine. My channel had grown. Over 300k subscribers now. What started as me venting from the floor of a borrowed guest room had become something else entirely. Movement. People were sending in their own stories, thousands of them. Some had video. Some just had voice notes too painful to say out loud without shaking. I listened to everyone. And I posted as many as I could. I made a whole series. Stories from the silent kids. Blew up. Suddenly, I wasn't just Alyssa with the family drama. I was Alyssa who gave people the courage to leave, to speak, to protect themselves. It was humbling. It was heavy. And it was healing. But healing isn't always linear. I found that out the day Jace showed up. It was late. I just finished recording a collab episode with a licensed financial trauma therapist when someone buzzed my apartment. I almost didn't answer. Figured it was delivery for a neighbor. But something made me check. And there he was. My brother. The golden one. The favorite. The echo of every time I'd been compared, belittled, or ignored. Standing under the flickering light of the front door camera. Looking tired. I hesitated. Every instinct in my body said don't let him in. But curiosity is a hard thing to kill. Buzzed the door. He didn't say anything at first. Just walked in like he expected me to fold. Like the weight of our shared childhood would erase the past 3 months. He stood in the middle of my tiny studio and looked around like he was cataloging proof of how low I'd fallen. "This is where you live now?" he asked. I raised a brow. "You didn't come here to talk about my furniture." I shrugged. "It's just small. So was my space at home. Yet you never seemed bothered by that." He winced. "But I'm not here to fight," he said finally. "I wanted to clear the air." I laughed. Not out of humor, pure disbelief. "Clear the air. Jace, you didn't even text me after Mom threw me out. You didn't ask if I had a place to sleep. I could have been dead in a ditch and you wouldn't have known." He didn't deny it. "I thought she was bluffing," he said quietly. "She always talks big." She wasn't bluffing. "I know." Silence stretched between us. Waited. "She's not doing well," he said. "The article, the videos. It's made her really paranoid. She's lost friends. People at church avoid her now." "Good." He blinked like I'd slapped him. "She hurt you," he said. "I get that, okay? But this campaign against her, it's cruel." "No," I snapped. What was cruel was being told I was selfish for wanting to move out. What was cruel was having my savings drained while she smiled to my face. What was cruel was being thrown out like garbage after I stopped being useful. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I understand that she made you believe I was the problem because as long as her lie worked on someone, it felt real." He looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. Instead, he sat down on the edge of my bed, uninvited, and rubbed his hands together. "She says she wants to talk to you," he said finally. "No. Just hear her out." "No, Jace. You're being unfair." "Unfair?" I felt the heat rise in my chest. Unfair is being the family punching bag and then being expected to serve tea after. I'm done being the reasonable one. The forgiving one. The one who absorbs every slap, every insult, every theft and still shows up smiling at Christmas like nothing happened. He stood up suddenly. "So what, this is you now? Angry? Bitter? Making a living off our family's dirt?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "If that's what it takes to finally be free, then yes." His face twisted. "You know, I used to think you were just dramatic. That you made everything bigger than it was. But now I see it. You like being the victim." That cut deep. Deeper than I wanted it to. But I didn't flinch. "I'm not the victim," I said. "I'm the survivor. And there's a difference." He left after that. No apologies. No closure. just slammed the door and vanished down the hallway. Footsteps echoing like all the years we spent pretending we were a family. After he left, I cried. Not because I wanted him to stay, but because the last thread tying me to that house, that world, that version of myself had finally snapped. And it hurt. But pain doesn't scare me anymore. Silence does. So I made another video. I didn't name names. I didn't tell people he came by. I just told the truth again. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving the toxic people. It's mourning the version of them you hoped existed. The mother who'd apologize. The brother who'd protect you. The family that never showed up. And when you let go of that illusion, the grief hits you like a second wave, but then you breathe. And it's cleaner than it's ever been. Became my most shared video. People stitched it with tears, with stories of their own siblings, parents, cousins who betrayed them. They said I helped them feel less alone. That maybe it was okay not to go home this Thanksgiving. That maybe no contact was an act of self-love. Kept going. The therapist I'd interviewed reached out again and invited me to co-host a live seminar on financial abuse in families. Sold out in days. I started getting invites to panels, podcasts, even a college lecture on online advocacy. I wasn't just telling my story anymore. I was building something. I opened a small nonprofit, Safe Start, helping young adults reclaim their finances after family manipulation. We partnered with credit unions. Got donations from a few unexpected places. Even the lawyer who first reached out to me on TikTok offered to do pro bono work. And every step forward, every success, made her smaller in my mind. One night, I sat in the little nook of my studio with a glass of wine and a new rug I'd splurged on, and I opened a draft email. It was to her. My mother. I didn't intend to send it. I just needed to write it. It said, "You taught me how to be afraid. How to make myself small to be loved. But I'm not small anymore. You don't get to define me. Not as broken. Not as bitter. Not even as your daughter. I define me now. And I forgive you not because you deserve it but because I do." I deleted it. Then I wrote a poem. Then I wrote a chapter. And just like that, the book started. I don't know what she's doing now. Maybe still lying. Maybe still painting me as ungrateful. Maybe trying to rewrite the narrative into something where she's the misunderstood matriarch, and I'm just a vengeful brat with internet fame. Her. That story isn't mine anymore. Mine is this. I lost everything. And then I found me. And that is the truest revenge there is. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that speak the truth most people are too afraid to say. And if you've got a story of your own, drop it in the comments or reach out. Your voice matters.